Did you know that the size of your thighs could predict how long you're going to live? It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Now, I promise you I'm not joking here, and by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why. It comes from a large Danish study published in the BMJ, the British Medical Journal, that followed nearly 3,000 men and women for over a decade. And the people with the smallest thighs had a substantially higher risk of heart disease and early death, regardless of how much they weighed or how much fat they were carrying around the middle. What I want to do in this video is walk you through what that study actually found, why a small thigh is such a warning sign, how to tell whether your own thigh size is the kind that protects you, and exactly what you can do to build the kind of legs that keep you alive and independent for decades. If you're new here, then welcome. My name's Dr. Alex. I'm here to help you live longer and stay healthier along the way. And if you find this video useful, if you get some value from it today, then the best thing that you can do to support me is like the video and hype the video as well, and also subscribe to the channel. It makes such a difference, and it allows me to keep making these videos for you and keeping them completely free. So the research in question here today is this Danish cohort study. And if you want to read more about it, then just check out the link in the description below. I'll put a link to the actual paper below for you. And the detail that surprised people, though, was the threshold. The researchers measured the circumference of people's thighs and then followed them for years. And they found that once thigh circumference dropped below around 60 centimeters, the risk of cardiovascular disease and premature death climbed pretty steeply. And this held true even after they accounted for body fat and smoking and blood pressure and cholesterol and how active people were as well, which is what makes it so striking. One thing to be clear about, though, is that this is not a study saying that the bigger your thighs are, the better, because above that 60 centimeters threshold, there was no extra benefit from having larger legs, if that makes sense. The entirety of the danger that we're talking about here sits at the low end in thighs that had wasted away towards nothing rather than in thighs that were simply average, because the link that we're talking about survived all of that adjustment for fat and lifestyle. The researchers concluded that what the tape measure was really detecting was muscle, and that a small thigh, a thigh that doesn't have much around it, is very often a sign of too little muscle on the rest of the body as a whole, which links to that video that I did on grip strength a couple of weeks ago. The more muscle you have in your forearms, the stronger you can grip. So the longer you live generally, this is what all of these different research studies show. And here's the part that makes thigh circumference so unusual, because almost every other measurement we take on the body works the other way around, doesn't it? So a larger waist or a higher BMI or more fat around the organs, these all mean more risk. And we spend most of our time in medicine telling people to bring your numbers down. You've got to lower your blood pressure. You've got to lower your weight. You've got to lower your waist circumference, all of these different things. But the circumference of your leg muscle, your thigh, is one of the very few measurements where a smaller number is a bit more worrying and a larger one is a bit more reassuring. And again, the reason comes down to what each measurement is actually capturing. A big waist is mostly visceral fat. This deep active fat that wraps around your liver and your intestines, and it pumps out inflammatory signals, and it can contribute to heart disease and diabetes, all of these different things. A big thigh is mostly muscle along with subcutaneous fat, which is very different from this deep visceral fat in your abdomen. And research has shown that this type of fat can be metabolically protective, acting as like a safe long-term store that keeps fatty acids away from your heart and liver because it's stored in your leg. So the same tape measure can mean completely different things depending on where you put it. So a big number around your waist is generally bad, but a small number around your thigh is generally bad as well. And this raises a very fair question, which is whether a large thigh helps you if it is simply made of fat rather than muscle, because how can you reliably tell the difference? So the tape measure on its own obviously cannot separate the two. That tape measure doesn't know whether it's mostly fat or muscle. And yes, it is entirely possible that you could have a big thigh that is soft and weak, with very little muscle underneath it, and that doesn't carry the same protection. The reason the researchers in this study lean towards muscle as the driver is that this link held up even after they adjusted for body fat, which points to the lean tissue doing the protective work. The reassuring thing here is that you do not need a scan to get a rough sense of your own legs. So, think about yourself for a second. Can you get up from a chair without using your hands? Can you get off the floor, better still, without using your hands? Can you do 10 body weight squats without stumbling or having to lean on the wall? And when you tense your thighs and when you feel them with your hands, do they feel firm or do they feel really soft and flabby? If your thighs are large, but they are very soft and they are slow and they are weak, then the number on the tape measure maybe shouldn't reassure you because the goal is to build the muscle underneath. And that is exactly what the rest of this video is about. A strong muscular thigh is the one that carries this longevity benefit, not girth for its own sake. So if your leg is big and feels firm and you're fairly strong, then that's good. If your leg is fairly large, but it's very flabby and you can't really do a squat, then obviously that is bad. The other end of the spectrum is that your thigh is very skinny and it's also weak as well, which I guess is the whole point of this video. And the reason this is so important is that your legs and your glutes are the biggest muscle group in your entire body. And skeletal muscle is the main place that your body parks the sugar that you eat in your diet. Now, metabolic research has shown for literally decades that your muscle is responsible for the large majority of the glucose that your body clears from your blood after a meal under the influence of insulin. And the quadriceps and the hamstrings and your glutes on your buttocks are the biggest place that you have for that. So when those muscles are large and active, they soak up blood sugar efficiently and they keep your insulin low. And when they shrink, that sugar has fewer places to go. So your levels stay high and insulin climbs. And over the decades, that is the road towards type 2 diabetes and the damage that it does to your heart and your kidneys and eyes and brain along the way. And there is a reason that resistance training in these research trials reliably improves insulin sensitivity, often within weeks, because you are rebuilding the very tissue that handles your blood sugar. So a big and well-used set of leg muscles is doing very good, steady metabolic work every single day that literally protects you from one of the most common drivers of early death. Now, beyond just storing sugar, your muscle behaves like an organ that talks to the rest of your body, which is something that science only really understood in the last 10 or 20 years or so. So when a muscle contracts, when you squeeze a leg muscle or you stand up or you do a bicep curl, that muscle releases signaling molecules called myoines into the bloodstream. And research shows that these molecules travel to your fat and to your liver and to your blood vessels in your brain. It lowers inflammation. It improves how your blood vessels behave and supports your mood and your memory as well. These myoines from your muscles do lots and lots of really powerful things throughout your entire body. And because your legs contain so much of your total muscle, they are the biggest source of these protective signals. So every time you load them and you squeeze them, you are sending a huge wave of anti-inflammatory messages around your entire body. And this is really important because chronic low-grade inflammation sits underneath heart disease and dementia, many cancers as well. And it tends to creep upwards as we age and as we lose muscle. So large and active leg muscles, muscles that are used consistently all the time, are one of the most powerful natural tools that you have to keep that inflammation in check, which is part of why people who keep their legs strong tend to stay well for longer as well. Now, the practical version of all of this is fairly simple, isn't it? You got to try and build your leg muscles because strong legs are a huge part of what keeps older people independent and alive Leg strength is what lets you catch yourself when you stumble and also absorb the impact if you do fall. And a broken hip in later life is one of the most dangerous events an older body can face, with a large proportion of people never returning to their previous independence and a huge number of people not surviving the next few months. And the science and the research really does back up what we see in the emergency department. Studies have found that how fast an older person can walk and whether they can lower themselves to the floor and then rise again without using their hands, which is the sit-rise test. Both of these track very strongly with how long they go on to live. And again, grip strength shows a similar thing. The harder you can grip on a dynamometer, the longer these people go on to live, because it shows that they have more muscle across their entire body. And all of this points to the same underlying truth that the strength of your muscles and the more muscle that you have, this is one of the clearest signals that we have of your future health. Now, the best part of all of this is that your thigh muscles respond to training at literally any age. And people in their 70s and 80s and beyond have been shown to build real strength once they start. So I promise you, it is never too late to begin. Obviously, the single most effective thing that you can do is resistance training for your lower body 2 or 3 times a week. And the movements that matter most are the ones that copy your daily life, like squats or standing up from a chair without using your hands, or step-ups onto a stair or onto a low bench or something like that, and lunges if your knees allow them. The principle that makes all of this work is progressive overload, which simply means gradually asking your muscles to do a bit more over time, whether that's a few more reps or a deeper squat or a bit of weights on your back, or like a couple of bags of sugar or some dumbbells, obviously, when you're doing your squats. And these are really cheap these days. 55 or 10 pounds. You can get a couple of good weights in your hands, but you obviously also need to give those muscles the raw material that it needs to grow. So aim for a good source of protein at every single meal. Somewhere in the region of 20 to 40 grams in each of those sittings from foods like eggs or fish or occasional red meat or lentils or beans as well. And obviously walking or cycling or just trying to stay generally active throughout the day. All of this adds on top of your training, and if you are older or less confident or a bit more frail, then starting really slow, maybe starting with 5 or 10 sit-to-stands from a chair a couple of times a day. This is a brilliant place to start, and you should be proud of yourself for actually doing something and taking that big leap. And once you become a bit more confident, you can gradually build from there. But the important point is that this doesn't require a gym. It doesn't require any fancy equipment or fancy clothing or running shoes. You just need your body weight and perhaps a chair. But you need to keep doing it consistently over weeks and months and years, because that is where the real power lies. So your thighs really are this window into your future. It reflects how much protective muscle you are carrying and how well your body can handle sugar and inflammation and the simple business of staying upright. Remember, the most important thing that we're talking about in this video is small thighs means low muscle mass, means more risk of everything we talk about. But the wonderful thing about it is that this is one of the most changeable numbers in all of health. And the work that you put in now shows up as years of independence later on. Now, obviously, if you've got a medical condition or you've not exercised in a very, very long time, then just have a quick word with your own doctor who knows your own medical history and your medications as well, just to make sure that this is safe for you. But for the vast majority of people, what I talk about in this video is going to do a lot of good stuff for you. And when I'm exercising, I am literally thinking about my independence and my health when I'm my parents' age, when I'm in my 60s. You've got to be thinking about these things really, really early on, because if you don't do the things that protect your body, then your body will deteriorate, and you want to be starting as early as you can, but it is never too late. So again, I really hope you found that video useful. It is a bit shorter than my usual videos. Let me know in the comments if the length was good, if it could be a bit longer for you. And please, please give it a like and subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. And thank you so, so much and I will see you next time.